All right, let's dive into this presentation here. The BWJ Community. What is the BWJ Community? Well, I'm going to explain that in this presentation. Before I do that, I want to really take a look at the name, the brand, Build with Jake, and then community, and speak to this just for a second, just as a way to pre-frame you as we move into this. And I want to speak to each word specifically. Uh, and this is just giving you a little bit of a look into my brain and how I think about things too. I think is important here, since I'm the catalyst to creating this community and bringing this together. Um, you look at the three components here: build, Jake, and community. So let's look at build. It's a mode of operation, and this mode of operation is another way to kind of describe it. Is somebody that's in a state of action. And I've heard this said from a couple of different people that I think has been really valuable to me in how I process um, different moves that I'm making in a marketplace or within my business, whatever it is, even in life, is when you kind of sit back and there's this balance between planning and action. It's like how much planning you do versus how much action you take, and when do you take action? How much planning do you need? How much readiness do you need before you take the action? And I have found this to be very beneficial for my life in building brands and businesses for the past 16 years, almost 2 decades, actually getting, I think it's been a little bit longer than that. But the thing is this: when you're not sure about something or you're not seeing results, the best cure for that, well, I don't want to use the word best, but a way to combat that is with action. I'm not really sure. I'm lacking clarity. Well, action will lead you to clarity, because when you actually take action on something, and I'm not suggesting going out and investing a bunch of money into some business endeavor or making big leaps necessarily, but just engaging. Okay, I need to figure out if this product makes sense for this market. Okay, we'll go speak to people in the market. You just go take action. It's a mode of operation. Too often I find people who are stuck kind of sit in this mode of thinking or just looking or over planning. It's like and you get to a point where it's like, okay, at some point you need to actually go out and take some action, and because until you do that, this is all just an idea that's living in your head. And if you want to make it real, you got to take action. So that's where the build comes from. That's where you see this, and I'll kind of this like B right here. This that B is for build. Like that's why I made this a B and not a J, because that's the verb. We are building. We are builders here. Jake, I'm your guide. I'm the one that's the kind of the catalyst of change of creating this community here. So if anybody's familiar with the hero's journey and kind of that whole concept, you've got the villain, you got the victim, you got the guide, or the hero. I'm sorry, not the victim. You got the hero, you got the villain, you got the guide. Um, and I'm the guide. I'm the person that's here to guide along. I'm facilitating structure, and I'm bringing this to life. I'm taking action. Actually, I decided to do this a little over a week ago. I'm probably more of a ready, fire, aim type. And you're going to see this in action. I did not do a ton of planning around this. And the reason I didn't is because I just don't know. I've got to put it out there and see if it's even something I'm interested in doing. And I'm following kind of a diffusion of innovation curve of only speaking to early adopters in the beginning to be able to get the most accurate feedback without unnecessary misunderstanding. So that is where me as the guide kind of taking the step forward, and then building the actual community, creating the collective momentum by pulling together people and connecting people in a way where shared values come together, different ideas, perspectives, and that's where you can move forward in a higher rate of momentum because you're with a collective. So that's the community piece. Okay. Now, in this presentation, just to kind of set that up, we're going to move into answering 4 questions of, number one, what is the BWJ community? Who is this for? How can I participate? Why should I care? So throughout the rest of this presentation, you will have the answers to these 4 questions. Okay. Now, just to kind of set the stage here, to tee it up, I want to lead with the BWJ mission. And the BWJ mission is really answering more of to like, what is the BWJ community? Well, let's kind of get into some of the deeper values here of what we're actually doing. and what my intention is for people that are kind of interacting and interfacing with my world. It is building community, clarity, and certainty for creative entrepreneurs who want success without losing the love for the craft. Okay, so now you understand this. In the next couple slides, I'm going to dive deeper into what this mission actually means. And you'll then have the accompaniments of understanding what is the BWJ community at the deeper level here. So let's go ahead and move forward here. All right, I was thinking about this as far as who are the people that are going to get the most benefit and value from being part of this community. And I was able to distill it down into 2 groups. Now, I want to go back to this mission statement because I put here 4 creative entrepreneurs. This is really important to understand. Creative entrepreneurs. These are people who are expressing their creativity as an entrepreneur in a way that is going to create success for their life and their business, okay? And when I think about that person, I kind of come down to 2 different groups here. The first one is experts who are building a personal brand, people who have deep expertise and mastery in something, and they have decided to take that expertise. Maybe they're writing a book, maybe they're putting together some kind of a coaching program, they're consultants, maybe they're community builders, they're building masterminds, whatever the mode or the mechanism is doesn't really matter. But overarching is that you're an expert building a personal brand, or you're building a brand that is kind of expanding a personal mission. That would be another way of thinking about it. The second group are creative service providers, and this is actually me. I'm both of these things. So this is why I came down to like these are the 2 groups that probably make the most sense. These are the people who I think I connect with the best. When I look back at all the different clients and people I've worked with, it always seems like these 2 people seem to consistently show up in my world and find value. So creative service providers, you're exchanging your creative skill set for exchange for money. Basically, you're a designer, you're a writer, technical arts. Like I think of like people that are like these people would be like all these people would be more freelancers. Maybe you have like a boutique, like myself with Gravity Web Studio. It's more of a boutique where I'm providing strategy, but then I have a roster of freelance designers who work closely with me on more of the technical pieces and design. So that might be you. So if you're one of these 2 categories and you're watching this, then just know that you're in the right place. Okay, let's talk about me, my background, just so people know who I am. Some people are watching this have a better understanding of me, but there's definitely people watching this who have no idea who I am. So let me just clarify this for a second. There's 4 big points about my past that's relevant to what we're doing here. And the first one is that I've been in creative services for about 16 years. Technically got started in 2008, didn't really get serious until 2010. And through that time frame, I had 10 years where I was an owner of an award-winning event lighting company in Central Virginia. This business endeavor really taught me a lot. I pretty much saw all phases of growth through that business, from the very beginning startup bootstrapping. It's just me. I've got, some equipment in the garage. I'm working out of my garage, and all the way up to at the very end, I had 18 employees. 7 of them were full time. I was completely out of the operations, working. I actually lived 3 hours from the business. I wasn't even in the same city at exit. So I saw all that growth from like the very beginning of just me by myself. And there's tons of lessons that I learned through that experience around, how to actually scale a business, especially this is creative services and a very high risk industry of special events is actually pretty high risk. And that's another conversation for another time. But actually to do it successfully, the only thing that wasn't successful was the final exit, my actual exit from the business. I take it back. I don't say it wasn't successful. It wasn't the exit that I hoped for. I was able to exit successfully, and I avoided some severe financial turmoil. Unfortunately, when the exit happened when I started the exit was right before COVID. had come in and pretty much wrecked everything that I had built in terms of like I lost all my valuation, almost went bankrupt. It was a very traumatic time for me that year, but I was able to successfully exit. And, I probably will publish it. Well, actually, I do kind of have a little bit of a story published on this already if anybody's ever interested in hearing about what happened there. But that was for 10 years. During this time, like kind of near the end, I was thinking about transition, and I actually have spent 7 years in digital marketing. Through that time, I worked on a SaaS project. I worked with podcasting. I feel like I've done pretty much everything there is to do in digital marketing: Facebook groups, podcasting, YouTube, building sales funnels, reading Russell Brunson books, doing all the ClickFunnels stuff. Had my little phase in that world. 7 years in digital marketing, 2 years building websites as a service. So all this kind of led to a couple years ago, I started building websites and selling it as a service. And that's what really led to the launch of Gravity Web Studio, which is the business that I currently run today. And I'll touch on Gravity here later in this presentation. But this is kind of my track record. This is where I've come from. And going into kind of staying in the same vein of creativity, I wanted to share this quote with you that's very personal to me. It's part of my value system. And I want to start with this quote by Pablo Picasso that says, "Every child is an artist. The problem is staying an artist when you grow up." And I want to bring you to these photos over here. So this kind of board that you see, I'm actually looking at it right now. This is right behind my desk. It's got different pieces of art that my kids have made for me over the years, and I swap them out. I've got way more art than I can actually hang here. They love making art for me, and because they like to see it show up on the wall. So sometimes they'll make a piece of art just because they want to see it on the wall. And the thing is, it's a gift. It's a gift that my kids give me because it's a reminder that to never lose that inner child. And I have a core value. It's youthful, to be youthful, and to never lose the inner child, to create like a kid, limitless and fun. And as a creator, as somebody who's a designer, it's like it's easy as you become an adult, it's easy to lose that inner child of creativity, that inner artist that we have. And then these are me and my two boys right down here. There's Graham and there's Pierce, and we're all sweaty working in the garden. And sometimes art doesn't necessarily have to be a drawing on a piece of paper. Sometimes it can be food that's being planted in the dirt. And there's art to, I think, a lot of things that we see around us in our everyday lives that sometimes we may or may not take granted for. But just a reminder that, as you get an adult and you get inundated into all the responsibilities that it takes to being an adult and raising a family and paying the bills, don't lose that inner child, because there's something special there, and it can be a huge value add to your life and even to your business if you can bring that in, kind of reemerge that back into your life. Okay, protecting your love for the craft. So if I'm just going to kind of bring you back real quick. So right here, we talk about the mission statement: building community, clarity, and certainty. And I've answered a question of the creative entrepreneur. I'm talking right now about the love for the craft, and we'll get into clarity and certainty here in a minute. But getting into the love for the craft, I kind of distilled this down to the 4 key principles that I personally operate around when it comes to how do I protect the love for the craft. And what I mean by this is that as a creative entrepreneur, we have this craft. We love this craft. We actually love it so much that we're trying to build a business around it. You're a designer. You love to design. It's like, what if I could use this skill and this craft that I have mastered and have it be something that could actually fund my life and be an asset for my life? And that's typically where a lot of us kind of fall into at some point when we've developed some craft within ourselves. And the risk that you have to be careful with is that you lose that love for the craft because you've decided to start a business, and by starting that business, that all of the responsibilities come in. You get clients that are demanding, you get all the complexity that comes with running a business, and before you know it, you actually start resenting the craft. And the craft that you once loved is no longer a love. It's actually something that's kind of become an enemy in your life. And that happened with me with my lighting business. There was a point that came where I just hated lighting. I couldn't stand it. I wanted to get out of it. I didn't care for it anymore. That was around the time when I decided to. It was like this is probably when it makes sense to me to start my exit, because I've lost the love for the craft. And even when I got into the digital marketing space, there was definitely a lot of craft around content and design, and there were cycles that I would go through where I loved the craft, but then I started losing the love for the craft. And when you lose the love for the craft, you start to think to yourself, well, what's the point? I don't even like doing this anymore. Why I got into this in the first place, because I love what I do, and now I don't love what I do anymore. And if this is the case, I may as well just go get a job, or just stick to like what the plan A was in the beginning, when before I even started to do any of this work. So this is really important. I think there's what I've kind of come to through the years is that there's really four things that you have to kind of keep front and center as you're operating, as you're building this system for around the craft, and how you're bringing it to the world for impact. And it comes down to these four. The first one being simplicity. Simplicity cures preventable stress. So I say that as in the alternative is complexity, right? The opposite of simplicity is complexity. And too much complexity. I think there's complexity. There's always complexity in a business. There's complexity, in that business, and to some level. And if you ever find yourself that you're stressed out with your business, the first place I personally always look, and this is always just a good exercise to do, like, I'm stressed out, I'm overwhelmed, I'm feeling burnt out. Well, you might have too much complexity, and this is preventable. That's the good news, because all you have to do is simplify and go through, look at your business, look at the components that you put in place, and ask yourself, what is just dead space or something that's burdensome that doesn't even have to be there, that I can just remove. And remove that complexity, simplify down, and that's going to cure a lot of problems for you just by simplifying. The second thing, people. Joe Polish if anybody's familiar with Joe Polish, look him up. I love his take on, he calls them ELFs, ELFS, or ELF, which is an acronym for easy, lucrative, fun. So thinking about like your clients and your partners and people that you're interacting with on a daily basis, like you want people that are easy, lucrative, and fun. And if they're not easy, lucrative, and fun, Joe calls them, I believe they're called HALF, HALF, which is hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. People, it's just like if anybody's been in creative services long enough, or any kind of service long enough, you always have that, you inevitably get that client where it's like, man, this client, I can't wait just to be done with them. They're making me hate my job. And that's why I say, if we're protecting the love for the craft, we got to really be thinking about the people that we're working with on a day-to-day basis. Find your ELFs. Space. Creativity needs room to thrive. So if you ever feel like you hear the term writer's block, I can't think of anything. I'm like losing my creative touch right now. It's just like I'm done. Well, the way that, and this is what works for me, I think this works for a lot of other people, so I'm just putting that out there as an antidote, is to create space. Your brain is inundated with too much, and you need to flush it out. And the way I personally like to do this is I go for walks, I take naps, or I take a shower. Those are like the three go-tos for me: walks, naps, and shower. I get rid of all consumption during those moments, because when you start consuming and feeding your brain with more information, you're just filling up space. You're not creating space, you're filling space. So I have come to realize that creativity needs room to thrive. It needs space. People that are really active on social media, watch this, because social media can eat up a lot of space in your brain, because you're consuming lots and lots of information very quickly, especially if you're doom scrolling, and it makes it difficult for creativity to thrive, because it's so much information just hitting your brain. Just be careful with that. I've seen that in myself and a lot of other people just through observation, as a block that can show up. And then the last thing is connection, and that's why you're here. When you connect with people, when you exchange energy with one another, that exchange of energy has a way of kind of like amplifying your creative spirit and your drive and just the love for the craft. So that's a big part of why I'm creating this community. Okay, now let's get into some of the logistics. Very simple. I won't spend a lot of time on this slide. Just some housekeeping stuff. This community meets every Friday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Zoom. All you got to do is just be a subscriber to join. Just go to buildwithjake.club, put in your email, hit join, and you're in. You'll get the emails for the calls, where to join the call, reminder on Fridays to join the call. This is free for now. It may become a paid thing later. I don't know yet. But I do know that if, like right now, as I'm building this, I'm looking at people who I would call founding members. These are people that are showing up every week on the calls. They're engaged, they're participating. And at some point, I'm going to probably make a decision where I say, you know what, I think I've got my founding members here. I'm pretty happy with where the community is. There's good contribution. I might payment gate it later. I might not. I don't know yet. This is so new right now that I'm really not thinking that far ahead. I just know that I want to pull people together every week. But if you are showing up, just know that you are considered a founding member at this point, and that means that you're going to get, the most benefit of being in this community long term. Okay, let's go into the agenda. So this is just the agenda for the calls. I want to make sure you understand, like, what do we expect? Like, what are we doing on these calls? What's the thing? And there's really four main components to these calls. They're not going to be like super rigid or structured in this way, or it's not like I'm not trying to make them overly rigid, but I do want structure. And the structure that I have currently, this is always subjected to change because I am currently gathering data and feedback to figure out how this is going to be best designed. But I love the idea, and because, clarity is, again, we're going to go back to clarity. You said building community, clarity, and certainty. Well, here's where clarity shows up, and that's through a reflection exercise. Now, at the end of this presentation, I'm going to go through a reflection exercise with you. It's just easier to use an example to show you what this looks like. And I'm also going to get into some details in the next slide about that. But we'll open with a short reflection exercise, and then everything after that is going to be like ecosystem design. So this is something that I do with Gravity Web Studio. I do a lot of ecosystem design. You're seeing it in action right here with Build with Jake. This is an ecosystem that I'm building. So I will have kind of open office hours for people to talk about ecosystem design. There might be some trainings, just some open discussions that people want to kind of talk about. Whatever that might be, but ecosystem design, or however I can support based on where people are at. The other thing will be member presentation. So I don't want the focus. This is a community. It's not, everybody come together on Fridays and let's hear Jake talk about stuff. This is a community, so I want to pull together members, especially members who have, maybe there's a certain topic that you want to speak on and you want to present to the community. It'll give more awareness to you and what you're doing in your business. That, maybe others will hear that and they'll say, hey, I need to connect with this person because this is actually the kind of there's some synergies here between us that we can collaborate on. And I put here swaps. So like swaps would basically mean like, if I don't have a member presentation, then it's just basically going to be, let's talk about ecosystem design. I want this to be very actionable calls. I don't want to just like get on a call and just have small talk with one another. I want this to be like, hey, we're here to build. We're here to talk about what you're working on, and let's remove constraints and let's get clarity and let's create some certainty around what you're building. That's the purpose of these calls. It's all action. So, these two things would be swapped out. The last one is pull method. This is my methodology for web design. So that's what we do at Gravity Web Studio. That's our core discipline. So I do reserve the last Friday specifically. Like, there's no member presentation. I mean, this is part of ecosystem design. This is a big part of it. But it's just, this is specifically for people who are going through pull method. And so we use that last Friday specifically for that conversation. So talking about like reflection, basically, and again, this is where clarity comes in. So this is a look back from the prior week. We're going to distinguish data from assumption, and we're going to evaluate direction. Those are like the three main components of this reflection exercise. I am going to put like a little worksheet. I'm going to design some worksheets around some of these questions that will give you a little more guidance. But yeah, they're just reflection exercises like, hey, let's bring some clarity around what it is you're doing. I don't think people reflect enough, personally. That's just an observation I've seen. I don't see enough reflection. And reflection, in my opinion, is one of the best mechanisms for creating clarity for yourself. It's like, slow down, let's just pause for a minute and let's reflect, and like, let's look back on the past, but also understanding how to distinguish actual real data, real feedback from assumption. Because oftentimes we'll look at something that's gone on in the past, and we're reflecting backwards, and rather than actually looking at the data, which sometimes the data can be hard to look at because the data might tell you a story that you don't want to hear. And this is where like data can, but it's like, it's the thing that you need to hear. You need to see, look at the data. What's the data actually telling you? Otherwise, you'll go to assumption. And when you're in assumption, you're leaning more, you're going to end up kind of falling victim to your biases. Sorry, I hate to use the word victim, but that's what happens. You put together these assumptions around what you think's going on, and then you bias towards whatever the outcome or whatever the situation you want to see happening, whether it's true or not. So data is always we're going to bias towards data, and we need to make sure that we're distinguishing when we're doing these reflection exercises, that we're distinguishing between data and assumption. And then after that, that's when we evaluate direction. Okay, now I know what's going on. Now I see the reality. So what's the direction? What are the next 1 or 2 steps that's going to move me closer? Pull method. This is my methodology for web design. I won't go into a lot of details here because this is going to be like, there's like a whole nother presentation just on this that I'll record. Prepare, unify, lift, launch. I'll just leave it at that. You can look at this slide if you like, but I'm not going to waste a lot of time on it because there's another presentation for this. And then member-led presentations, just a couple of notes here. You're going to speak on it. If you want to do this, what you'll do is you'll have a topic of choice. You can use slides. You don't have to use slides. You just have the floor for 15, 20, 30 minutes. Usually about half an hour is kind of what I try to stick to in terms of any kind of presentation. These will be published on YouTube. So just understand that. This is kind of taking the place of my podcast. Instead of doing interviews, I'm facilitating member-led presentations within the community. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end. You present, and then at the end, we'll do some Q&A. All right, to join, go to buildwithjake.club and subscribe. I've already covered that. A couple notes here about enrollment. So the community grows through resonance. It's shaped through shared values and referrals from those who recognize who belongs. I am not, I'm pretty much off social media right now, just full disclosure. That's another conversation for another time. But what I'm trying to say here is that growing this community is going to be kind of, I think the word is grassroots, or it's going to be through the members. Myself, I'm going out, I'm speaking to people, I'm having conversations. I'm really growing this pretty old school. I'm not doing the social media thing where I'm trying to get a ton of reach around it. I really don't want that personally. I want people that are showing up because they align with the mission, they align with the values, and they align with the people. And if that makes sense for you and you're in this, you're like, you know what, I've got some other people I'd love to bring on. Or if you're a community leader yourself, and I'm going to talk about this in a minute, and you want to collaborate through growth or through cross promotion and things that can kind of help grow communities together, we can even explore those options. We publish member-led presentations on YouTube, and I already spoke to this, but it's not for reach. I'm not trying to create content for the YouTube algorithm. I'm creating content for this published on YouTube is to offer a window into the kind of conversations that we value here in this community. So if you've done a presentation and you want to share, that with people that are close to you, that are in your community, and there's a window there. You've got the link, it's public, and anybody can watch it. So some expectations there. Okay, why should I care? So far, I've answered who is this for. I've answered what it is. What was the other? Let me go back. One more. Yes. Talked about how you can participate. The last one. So we've answered all these questions here. I probably should have made a slide for this at the end. What is it? What is the community? Who is it for? How you can participate. Now let's talk about why you should care. Okay, right here. Because you're ready to build the thing. You're ready to take action. You're kind of done staying stuck in the planning phase. You're ready to move from planning to actually action and start getting that feedback loop established. Action can be really uncomfortable. So having a community and people that you can lean on is going to be really valuable to you there. The second thing is because you value community and human connection. If that's part of your value system, then you should care to be here. It's because you want to help with your website. You want help with your website and digital ecosystem. This is a little bit more tactical. It's like I've got skill and resources into helping people with this third checkpoint here. And, a lot of people are going to show up just because they need help here. But you're also thinking like, and these are extra benefits that's also helping, create more of a force multiplier within within the participation within this community. And the last thing is because you want success without losing the love for the craft. I'm just going to reiterate my mission here. It's like you're a creative entrepreneur. You want success without losing the love for the craft. That's what we're all about. There's another benefit as to why you should be here, or why you should care, I guess, especially if you're somebody who is a community builder or somebody who prefers to grow their presence, their network through community. Like if community is a really big part of how you market yourself and your brand, this is where I'm really leaning into. So collective momentum inside the BWJ network. I do have relationships with people who are also building communities that work with, that expert who's building a personal brand or that creative service provider. So I'm looking for community leaders specifically like in that realm. And I've got a couple, and I'm like relaunching, community. There's going to be a community discovery for the upcoming release of the new BWJ website. So I will have like events and stuff that are going to be published in community discovery that's going to be there. You'll get support from me. Like if you're running a community and you're in my community, like I want us to collaborate. I love to collaborate. And the way collaboration can look is you can bring me in. I'll co-host a workshop. I'll do a podcast interview with you, group participation. I can't promise I'll be at every single community event because I just can't do it by myself, but I will make sure that I do show up. And I do make presence known because I understand like when you're building community, like one of the biggest challenges is just getting people to show up, whether it's free or not. Just it doesn't matter if there's a paid gate or if it's free. Just getting people to show up because it's their time and energy, and they're deciding whether or not they want to spend it with you or whatever it is that you're doing. And if when you do have people show up and you do have that collective momentum, it does add a lot of value to your community. So just showing up, just know that, just understand that too. If you ever want to really make somebody's day, especially a person that's a community builder, show up for their community, participate, contribute. Like you will get seen and you will be heard, and that person will lean into you in some way. Cross promotion opportunities to raise awareness and drive member growth. This is a lot of that's going to be through like my community discovery feature on the new website. I also will be talking about community events in my newsletter that goes out every Wednesday. And founding members get first dibs on support and collaboration. So like if you're a founding member, again, this goes back to what I said earlier. It's like if you're showing up for my community and you're supporting, then I'm going to look at you first for any potential collaboration with anything that I'm doing. So if you see that as a potential value add for you, just know that. Okay. I want to move in. We're kind of getting to the final part. I do want to talk about Gravity Web Studio. And I think this is important because I do talk a lot about ecosystem building, and this is kind of my ecosystem. This is my ecosystem. And this is going to be, I will be providing, especially when we're talking about ecosystem design, I will be providing a lot of case and points and examples to how I'm doing it with my own brand. But I've got two brands here. I've got Gravity Web Studio. This is a web design boutique. That's what we do. We do website design, and we do it on Webflow. We develop on Webflow. This is also the brand engine for BWJ and close partners. So there's some other services I'm going to get to in a minute that I do offer, but it's more behind the scenes because I'm very, very, very particular about who I work with as far as like being more of a brand engine. And then with BWJ, this is community building, digital ecosystem advisory. It's free. It's one to many. It's a group. And also, this is productized marketing for Gravity Web Studio. I've talked about this topic. I've actually been interviewed on this topic with Scott Perry at Creative on Purpose. If you want to go check out his stuff on Substack, shout out to Scott. And I've published an article on productized marketing. I use productized marketing with my last company in special events, and it works extremely well. And you're going to see it again, case in point, showing up here. BWJ is a marketing engine technically for Gravity Web Studio. It's a product in itself. Okay, Gravity Web Studio, just like I want to make sure that you're aware of what I do at Gravity. So website design, webflow development, I've already talked about that. These are the things that I do that people will ask me about these. So when I say strategic assets, I'm talking like this right here, this whole presentation, this is a strategic asset. This is me providing a presentation that creates the foundation of understanding of Build with Jake and the community. So people who go through this video, watch it to the end, you're going to leave with probably some new insights on how to think about this for your own brand, but you're also going to be super clear about what it is. Hopefully you're very clear about what it is that I'm doing, why you should care, what is Build with Jake community, and who it's for, and if it makes sense for you. So right now, like strategic assets, ecosystem building, I am doing this in kind of a one-to-many advisory only through BWJ. So when you're showing up to these calls, discussing ecosystem building with you, answering questions, helping you think through decisions and so forth. As far as like the done for you type service that I have done with certain clients in the past, it is a monstrous lift like on my brain to do this at scale. If like I pretty much, and it only really makes sense to do it with a business that I have some level of ownership in, because it's such a lift. It's so much work. There's agencies out there that charge, lots and lots of money to kind of manage this stuff for clients. And I'm like, I've thought about doing that, but I don't want the burden. I'd rather, again, this is me simplifying. So I'm kind of drinking my own Kool-Aid here of website design, webflow development, and all this other stuff that kind of plays into it. If you want that side of it from me, then you can be part of this community where we talk about it every week. I'll be creating assets and sharing assets. I'm not sure if I'm going to charge for them or not, but there will be other support resources and so forth that people can use to kind of build and work on their own ecosystem. The other side of it too is I personally believe that the creator or the owner should be taking the lead on ecosystem building. You can have a guide, you can have me as a guide. There's other people out there that can be guides for you as well, but that's just a position that I hold. I personally believe it's something that you should take a strong role in when it comes to the development of your brand and the ecosystem that you're building. Okay, let me just talk about, again, this is, I just said earlier, BWJ is technically a marketing thing for Gravity Web Studio, so I should probably talk about Gravity Web Studio and really what Gravity Web Studio is and how this kind of fits in. So for people that are watching this and are thinking to themselves, like, I'm really interested in working with Jake on my website, and there's already people, I know there's people in the community that have expressed that interest. And I'm just going to put it out there. Like, this is our position in the marketplace. And you can also think about this, like maybe even create one of these charts for your own brand to think about how you're positioned in the market. And this is how I see it for Gravity. So you have this chart here. You've got specialist, you have generalist, and then you got strategist, and then order takerist or order takers. I just felt like if I had three ist at the end, I should probably throw an ist on order takers. So Gravity Web Studio is a web design boutique. So boutique meaning like we're not freelancers, because it's not just me. I actually have three designers that work with me. One is a senior designer, Webflow developer. He's been with me since the beginning, since 2 years ago, been with me since the beginning. I have a graphics person who has been with me now for he's actually been mostly working with me just on my own brand stuff, but I am going to start getting him more involved in some of the website graphics and things that we need to just build and deploy as a support person. And then I have a now that we're growing, and I'm not sure how much bigger I'm going to grow this. Probably we'll maybe keep it at 2 to maybe 3 web designers in my roster, but I do have another web designer I'm starting to bring on and train. And that's it. We're not this big giant marketing agency. We're specialized. We do webflow development and web design. We combine strategy with design development. That's kind of like our unique edge. A lot of companies just do design and development. They're kind of more your order takers. It's like, that's why I put order takers. You've got, like, they're specialized in design, and they're probably an experienced freelancer, but they're not gonna work with you very much on strategy. You basically have to come up with a strategy and you just send it to them and they build it for you. With Gravity, you're gonna get me in your corner as the strategist, and then I have my team helping out with the design and development. So that's kind of what makes us different. Your generalists who are also strategists, that's kind of your marketing agency. So they're like, you get strategic support, but they're doing kind of a little bit of everything for you. They're doing your website, they're doing your branding, they're running your ads, and they're kind of generalists, in the marketing side. And then if you got an order taker who's also generalist, I'd just say these are kind of like experimenting freelancers. And I've actually been this person before. I was like, I kind of do like a Swiss Army knife. I do a little bit of everything. What do you need me to do? I can help you out with. The thing about this quadrant is that this person is a little bit more of a jack of all trades. They're not, and I'll say that confidently because I've seen this in myself. It's like, I'm pretty good at a lot of things, but I'm not great, and I want to be great. And this is why, like, up here, like, we can really be awesome up here. Like, if you got somebody that needs an awesome website and you need it to function a certain way and you're looking for custom and premium, like, we are your people. And if there's getting into like who is this ideal for, is probably the next best thing to talk about with regards to our positioning. Is we're really going to be great for like the established entrepreneur. You're in growth mode, you've got cash flow. If you're a startup, you might have a lot of funding and a lot of validation. Validation is really important. If you don't have any validation in what you're building, it's probably not the best move to hire us. It's probably better to either DIY it or just kind of pull in a couple, freelancers just to kind of patch some things together just so you can get validation, or not even worry about the website, depending on what you're doing. Just go out and get validation. You're purpose driven and you respect the hard work and skill that goes into our craft. This is really big. Like, I want to make sure that people I'm working with, like, truly respect our craft. It is hard work, and it takes a lot of creative skill and bandwidth to really pull together things the way that we do it. I put here, as far as like, people ask about spending and budgets. We're kind of going to we live in that like $5,000 to $10,000 range. That's like the sweet spot for us. Eventually, like, we have packages that start at $2,500. But as we iterate and grow and scale, we end up somewhere in this like $5,000 to $10,000 range on your website. So if this is financially justifiable based on where you're at in your business, then we're probably going to be a good fit for you. You also, as far as desires go, you're looking for, like, user experience is really big for us. We are fanatics about user experience. A lot of websites, if you ever like visit a website and it's clunky and you're not really sure where to go, or it's not responsive, or things are cut off, and it's just not it's like kind of patched together, like you get this like really clunky user experience. So the way we build, because we do build custom, we can really optimize that user experience. So when people do visit your website, they have a quality experience and are a lot more likely to engage with whatever call to action that you have. You want premium in your brand. We are premium. We are not we're not like the templated approach. Nothing against that. That's perfectly fine. I don't have any judgment, but there is a level of premium that people desire in their brand. And we are a company that gives that for you. And then just streamline web management. I won't go into a lot of details here, other than we try to make this really easy for you to manage it on an ongoing basis. by creating SOPs and also providing some support services for you along the way. Okay, at the end, thank you. If you made it this far, I really just want to say I appreciate your time. I'm not sure how many minutes we're in, but I know this has been an extensive presentation. So I appreciate your attention, really do. I'm going to leave you with this thought exercise, and we'll start with this quote by Weldon Long. It says, your thoughts drive your emotions drive your actions drive your results. So thinking through this, when we think about results that we want in our life, it goes back to actions. This is that mode of operation I spoke about in the very beginning. Build. That is the mode. But what actually drives those actions is your thoughts that leads to emotions that leads into your actions. So the reflection exercises I'm talking about, these are actually thought exercises that we're going to be doing. I'm going to have you do one. You can do this on your own time. When I had my call with the first group last Friday, we did this thought exercise. I thought it went really well. So I'm going to share this with you. Of course, if you were on the Zoom call, you would have turned your cameras off to reflect and write down your answers. But since you're watching this recording, you can just pause it or you can stop it from here because I'm going to be wrapping up after the slide. So the 3 questions are this. Why am I here? Is this moving me closer? Do I actually know what I want? So let's start from the end and work to the beginning here, because this is very intentional, the way I put together these questions. First question, do I actually know what I want? Well, that means, are you clear on where you're going? Do you have direction in your life and your business? So just take a pulse check there. Understand, is there clarity in where you're going, what you actually know? Now, I do want to emphasize, because a lot of people are like, you know what, I'm really not so sure what I want in my life. Just so you know, that's very common. It's okay. Like, don't think of it as a problem, because it's not a problem. It's actually very common. Just understand that that's where you're at right now. Is this moving me closer is kind of a bridge into this direction here, because we start with this. Why am I here? You took an action to watch this presentation for however many minutes I went through and rambled. I won't use the word rambling. I provided clarity, hopefully, on something that could be of value to you. And you got to this point and you're asking yourself, why am I here? Why would I show up every week to this community call? Get really honest with yourself. And what it needs to do is it needs to connect with what you actually want. And if this action is moving you closer to what you actually want, then it makes sense for you to participate. If it doesn't move you closer, if you don't feel like it's actually, aligned with what you want, then it doesn't make sense. Like, don't show up to the calls, don't participate. It's not going to hurt my feelings. I only want this to make sense for you based on where you're at in your life. So all that to be said, thank you so much for hanging with me all the way through this presentation. I really respect or really appreciate your time and attention here. And I'll leave you with that. And hopefully I get to see you on the future BWJ community calls. Okay.